Harry Callahan is a quite decidedly different character in Magnum Force. The biker cops, and leave now for spoilers if you're sensitive to those things, Hal Holbrook are quite right to be confused by Harry's lack of sympathy for their cause. Yes, Harry can usually make a case that it was kill or be killed when he shoots a criminal dead. He seems to believe he would never go beyond the book, outside the record, to murder a suspect. Whilst this is perhaps it could be true, he quite arguably may as well have. Callahan was still making a great mockery of the due process system and American civil liberties. Hey, maybe he mellowed out after the first film. It can happen, right? Harry's trigger-happy tendencies in this film appear more in response to initial violence committed by criminals rather than a lazy finish to a crime scene in progress. It seems as though John Milius, perhaps Eastwood as well, were determined to try and redeem this character and defend him from accusations of fascist after the release of the 1971 film, although to do so they, proved that they could really not, as they composed essentially a new character more or less, from my perspective. Maybe they ought to have focused on Harry's apparent between films off-screen moral character development, or would that be capitulating to the first film's numerous accusers? "You didn't understand me," Harry claims to the bike cops, a message intended for those who are assumed to have just misunderstood the first film, although perhaps Milius and co. didn't realise the severity of Harry's behaviour in the first film. The point of the first film was that Harry was very excessively brutal and needlessly violent, and what this said about his character, the American police force, and our reactions to it. Now he's just a sympathetic action hero, and a gallant, very active one at that. Magnum Force is far more an action romp than the first, which operates more as an investigative procedural police thriller with spots of action and a chase sequence or two, some shootouts, car chases, and even a bike chase adorn the runtime of Magnum Force, the bigger, badder sequel to Dirty Harry. Some of the sequences of the biker cops are extraordinary. The film has appeal, is a really entertaining slice of action junk, actually, is entertaining as baseless Dirty Harry action with pretensions of morality in this case. It is difficult for me not to enjoy, at least, not so much wholly admire, I'll admit, 1973's Magnum Force. The sequences when the biker cops are creeping up to assassinate their targets, it is extremely good stuff, to be certain. Really impressive scenes whenever they arrive. Very striking, memorable, mysterious, ominous moods. A bigger budgeted Dirty Harry, more smoothed and polished, trying to be far less controversial and edgy, far more action set-piece bombast, more able and stylish cinematography from Frank Stanley this time instead of Surtees, and larger production values in general. Also, it attempts to demonstrate this. I don't know if this actually had a larger budget than the first film, although if it did, perhaps at times it isn't effectively conveyed, as Don Siegel did not return to direct this sequel feature. Ted Post does not seem like a bad director. He helmed Beneath the Planet of the Apes. He may as well helm Magnum Force, although apparently he claims Eastwood wanted to somewhat rush the production, leading to the film seeming apparently inadequate from his perspective. And also John Milius, who, though he seemingly was to have more creative say over the conception of Magnum Force, his script was apparently ignored by Ted Post, who had Michael Cimino, revise the screenplay. Milius is quoted as disliking the finished film, objecting to inclusions of sex and violence, funnily enough, actually. I viewed Magnum Force, and Dirty Harry also, obviously, initially, at 12 or 13, make of that what you will. I'll never forget how adult and edgy Magnum Force seemed at that time. Even a 1973 film had so much naughty content that one could brag about having seen to other kids at school. Nudity, drugs, violence, scenes which exist for no other reason than to depict murder, assault, female breasts, blood, or sometimes two or more of these things, if it can. Magnum Force is insane, a mishmash of visions, but a lot of fun. Plausibly the better of the Dirty Harry sequels, although we'll see how the Enforcer holds up, and Sudden Impact was not without some minor merit, possibly. Though the Deadpool was just disappointingly and unpredictably stupid, sadly. Hey, pretty fun times in Magnum Force at least. Kind of.